How does a team with a $22 million payroll completely fall apart and give up 51 points in a single half? Kentucky's season is officially over, and it ended with an embarrassing 19-point blowout against Iowa State. For a fan base that expects greatness, this meltdown forces us to take a really hard look at the reality of this program right now. It hurts because there were moments this year where it felt like maybe things would be different, but instead, this game exposed some massive flaws we need to talk about, because the way this team folded when it mattered most is just hard to digest. The crazy part is that Kentucky actually came out looking great. For the first few minutes, they were not just competing, they were the better team. They built an early 18-7 point lead and looked like they were in total control. The ball was moving, they were making crisp passes across the court, hitting threes. Defense was physical right out of the gate, getting hands in the faces of Iowa State shooters. It honestly looked like Kentucky was going to run away with it and make a deep tournament push. But then, one timeout changed the entire season. Iowa State realized they were going to get beat, so they completely flipped their game plan. Before tip-off, everyone thought they were going to drop back and force Kentucky to shoot. That is what they did at first, and Kentucky punished them with 6 quick threes. So, Iowa State made a brutal adjustment. They decided to trap and put intense pressure on the ball handler at the point of attack every single time down the floor. The moment they turned up that pressure, Kentucky collapsed. The guards could not handle the trapping, the big man could not handle the physicality, and the team completely fell apart. Kentucky ended up giving the ball away an outrageous 20 times, with 12 of those turnovers happening in the first half alone. This is a team that rarely turned the ball over more than 11 times in a game all year, and they almost doubled that in their most important matchup. Every single shot felt like a miracle just to get the ball in the air. During that stretch, you could clearly see the fatal flaw in how this team was built. The most glaring weakness was the total lack of depth at the point guard spot. Mark Pope said on his radio show yesterday that over the summer, they built the entire offense around having a left-handed point guard, and when Lowe got hurt, it completely changed the way they had to play, which honestly sounds like a sorry excuse. Anyways, they literally could not take Denzel Aberdeen off the floor. When they tried to get him just a couple of minutes of rest, it was an absolute disaster. At one point, they put Jasper Johnson in the game. In just 90 seconds of playing time, the team was outscored by 9 points. -9 in less than 2 minutes. It was brutal, and it completely erased the good start they had built. There was a crucial swing right before halftime that showed exactly how fragile this team was mentally. Kentucky was still up by 7 points. They played great defense, forced a miss, and tapped the rebound right into the hands of Malachi Moreno. But he lost his footing, fumbled the ball, and an Iowa State player grabbed it and nailed a wide-open corner three. Suddenly, the lead was cut to 4. Instead of calming down and going into the locker room with momentum, Kentucky panicked. They rushed a bad shot with 0 clock awareness, gave the ball right back, and let Iowa State hit another 3. They went from being up 7 to being down 1 at the half in the blink of an eye. The second half was just hard to watch. Iowa State came out, punched Kentucky right in the mouth, and honestly, the players basically quit. Iowa State scored 51 points in the second half, leading by as much as 25. An Iowa State player even admitted after the game that they knew if they got physical, Kentucky would just want to be done. They were mentally weak, they lacked physicality, and they had 0 answers when the other coach made one simple adjustment. Looking at the big picture, you have to call this season what it is. It was a massive disappointment. You simply cannot lose 14 games at the University of Kentucky. They paid a fortune for this roster and finished as a 9 seed in the conference tournament. They got blown out by 40 points to Gonzaga, lost home games they had no business losing, and got outplayed, out-hustled, and out-coached way too many times. A lot of people want to point to the injuries, and yes, losing guys hurts. Not having a full roster makes things harder, but the coach knew some of those injury risks when he built the team. He made a choice not to get a backup point guard. Even when the whole squad was healthy for a brief stretch, they still got crushed by Alabama and lost to Missouri. It wasn't just bad luck, it was poor roster planning. They spent huge money on middle-tier players from other schools instead of putting together a puzzle that actually fit the style the coach wants to play. There were a few bright spots we have to respect. Ortega away had an amazing run. He was one of the most fun players to watch, carried the offense when nothing else was working, hit that legendary half-court shot versus Santa Clara, and gave his heart to the program. Denzel Aberdeen also deserves a ton of respect. He came in after winning a title at Florida and stepped up to play a completely different lead guard role because of the injuries. But the reality is that the next couple of months are going to decide if Mark Pope stays as the head coach long term. No one is firing him right now. He gets another year. But if he has another season where they lose 14 games and miss the Sweet 16, his seat will be scorching hot. He has to completely reset. He needs to figure out who's staying, who needs to leave, and how to get real talent into the building.
If we are being honest, he has to have some tough talks and let a lot of guys go. Players like Jasper Johnson and Brandon Garrison just did not show enough consistency to bring back at a high price tag. Mo Diabate is a great rebounder and defender, but he does not fit the Mark Pope system. He needs to keep Cam Williams for his outside shooting. Colin Chandler was a great two-way guard this year. Andre Jelly showed potential that he could grow into being an Andrew Carr type of player with a couple more years of development. And Moreno was good for being just a freshman. I would also like to see Lowe come back while also adding another high-level portal point guard, and then I think it's pretty set in stone that Braden Hawthorne and Reese Potter will come back. Once he figures out who is staying, he has to go shopping. He needs a team that can run the Mark Pope offense. Everyone has to be able to pass and shoot. Mark Pope went hard this year on getting athletic SEC-style guys, but you can't force guys to play completely out of their comfort zone. Pope needs to get more Kobe Brea, Jackson Robinson, Amari Williams, Colin Chandler type of guys. The only exception to this is if the player is absolutely elite. What makes fans the most nervous right now is what the coach is saying in his press conferences. After getting blown out, Mark Pope said his focus is going to be finding guys who want to play for Kentucky just because of the school's history. He said he wants guys who play for the name on the front of the jersey. That sounds great in a movie, but that is not how modern college basketball works anymore. Players today want a good system, playing time, and a nice paycheck. You cannot expect top talent to bow down to your school's history, especially when your team just had a frustrating season. It is arrogant to pitch the history of a school to an 18-year-old recruit and expect them to bow down. We have seen this happen before. A kid takes a visit to a famous school, and the whole pitch is just about how lucky the kid should feel to be there. Most of the time, the kid thinks that is lame and goes to a school where the coaches actually connect with them on a personal level and show them how they will fit into the offense. Right now, Kentucky has 0 committed high school recruits. That is completely unheard of for this program. So saying you only want players who bleed blue is a very risky game when nobody is currently signing up. Also, 18-year-olds these days haven't really seen Kentucky basketball at an elite level. Last time we made the Final Four was 11 years ago, so how much can they really respect something that they didn't really witness? There is a long list of things that must be fixed immediately. They need a general manager who actually knows how to build a modern college roster and navigate the transfer portal. Kentucky has the highest NIL budget. There are no excuses to whiff on as many recruits as Pope did last year, especially in possibly the deepest freshman class of all time. This is the most important offseason for Mark Pope. Year 3 is when the excuses run out. The standard at this school is excellence. Going 22-14 is not excellence. Getting run off the floor by Iowa State because the other team wanted it more is not excellence. The coach loves the school and the fans want him to succeed, but loving the school does not win games. Good players, smart coaching adjustments, and mental toughness win games. The work starts right now, and if they do not get it right, we will be having a very different conversation a year from now.